So we're moving on to the eyewitness testimony part of the memory topic, and the first section is misleading information. Now, misleading information, anything that could influence an eyewitness, incorrect information that could affect what they say, affect their recall, and there's two forms that we look at. So leading questions, the questions that are put to them when they are interviewed, and then post-event discussion. So the key name in this is Elizabeth Loftus, who's very influential with her research in this area, given how many wrongful arrests and imprisonments there have been, and the number of times that mistaken eyewitness testimony had been part of that. It used to carry a lot of weight. Now, yes, it will still be taken on board as part of a package of evidence, but they'd want other evidence as well. So I know I don't like to call it this, but the car crash study, just changing one verb, could influence how people recall that. Make sure your procedures are lovely and clear for this. It's a very well-known study. Make sure it's clear there's different conditions, and each condition, watched a number of videos, not just one, ask a number of questions, but the key question was how fast were the cars going when they, and then the verb was changed from contacted hit all the way through to smashed, and it led to about a 10 miles per hour difference, which is pretty substantial. That could be hitting somebody when you're driving and being comfortably within the speed limit to being a fair amount over the speed limit. There's also a follow-up study as well, where it was found that people who in a smashed verb condition were more likely later on to report seeing broken glass, even though there wasn't any broken glass in the video that they saw. Okay, so with that in mind, while you could argue, well, saying smash straight away gets people to say a faster speed, maybe, but actually that broken glass study suggests that actually it's substitution, that this word is changing memory. Remember, we've talked about how memory isn't a straight recording that's saved into your brain. It's changing all the time, can be influenced in many ways. So it does seem as if that word smashed didn't just lead to a response at that time, it actually had a lasting effect. Now, the other factor is post-event discussion. If you're not alone when this happens, chances are straight away you're going to talk to other people who are there as well. Did you see that? What happened? Straight away you're going to have that chat, and straight away your memory of it is contaminated. So people will say what they saw, and that may well interweave with your recollection of it, so that by the time the police get there and ask you what did you see, you might actually be reporting what you saw with little bits of what other people saw as well. And the key study in this one is the EWT study, videos of a crime, but different participants saw different angles of it. They were then given a chance to discuss what they'd seen, and a lot of people introduced content that they hadn't seen. So that's exactly what we're getting at here, the negative effect on their personal eyewitness testimony. They weren't given an account of what they saw. It was contaminated by what other people had seen as well. So when it comes to evaluating this research, a lot of these studies will have general issues. Just remember that you always need to justify your comment, always need to put it in context. So yes, a lot of these have high levels of control, be it distance from the event, the view of the event, the time exposed to this, etc., etc. Fantastic. Play it off against field experiments where it'd be very difficult to keep these things constant. Okay, that's fine, but examiners do get very annoyed with generic research methods points. This does have important real-life applications, so Loftus' research and that of others has been very influential for the police interview process, court cases, knowing to be that bit more cautious when interpreting and adding weight to eyewitness accounts. And then we do have an issue of anxiety, which is coming next. Likely that people have fairly low anxiety when they're taking part in a experiment, whereas in a real life setting, chances are they've got high anxiety. If you're going to be given an eyewitness account of something, it usually means something quite substantial has happened. Your anxiety is likely to shoot up at that point, and that could have an impact on your testimony. Now, in a lab setting, that's going to be absent, so there we can say it lacks ecological validity. It doesn't necessarily generalise to a real life setting. there's many other points you can make. There's questions about the sampling the original Loftus study. If it's students, they won't have that much experience of driving. A lot of them will be quite young, so they might be more easily influenced when it comes to speed. I've been driving many decades, and I would hope that regardless of what somebody said, I'd make my judgment. But who knows? Maybe I could still be nudged just that little bit. But you could talk about that. Also, ultimately, their responses don't have any consequences in these experiments, whatever. Whereas in a real life setting, the eyewitness will know that what they say could have huge implications for court cases and things like that. It's possible that maybe it wouldn't be so easily influenced if it was in a more meaningful real life setting. Okay, so plenty to talk about there. Just always remember, put it into context, link it to the study, don't make it generic.